Welcome to Future of Caregiving.
I posted it then to my private social media pages. Didn't think anything about it, and then woke up to like 2 million views.
On today's podcast, we have Hadley. Hadley is a hospice registered nurse, mom, and wife. As a hospice nurse, she now visits people at their homes while also educating and sharing stories about hospice care on social media. Hi, I'm your host, Leah Warnke, and this is Future of Caregiving, where we explore the rapidly evolving world of caregiving. From technological advancements to demographic shifts, we'll delve into the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for those who provide care and those who receive it. Join us as we discuss the future of caregiving with experts, care providers, and those with firsthand experience. We'll examine the trends, breakthroughs, and innovative solutions that are shaping the way we care for each other now and in the years to come. I am very excited to speak with you for a number of reasons. One, you have a book coming out, The In-Between, released June 13th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
I have read it, really enjoyed it, and I am excited to talk to you all about the writing process and about your career in general. To start us off, I know your nursing career began at the age of 22. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the start of your career and what those initial years were like?
Yeah, so I was a single mom and very young too, going through nursing school, which was very, very, very difficult, but got through. And I always share that because I say if I can do it, anyone can do it. And the first couple of years, I was really trying to find my place. And I really couldn't find my place. You know, I had a job and I'd go to it and it was okay. And I wasn't really feeling passionate about it at all. And I worked in a hospital on float pool, and then I did immediate care, and then I did a nursing home, and then I finally found my place in hospice, and I've stayed for 6 years.
Wow, that's awesome. And what was the transition like to hospice care originally?
Yeah, it's very different. And we didn't learn about it very much in school. We only had one day where we did home health care, so you either had home health or you had a hospice day. And I got assigned home health, and they're very different other than being in someone's home. And so I really did not know much about hospice at all until I started working in the nursing home. And then I saw patients who were on hospice where the hospice nurses would come in and take care of them. And I saw these nurses just sit one-on-one with these patients for like 30 minutes to an hour. And I really started watching them and seeing what they were doing and the independence that they really had and taking care of patients as a whole. And I was like, I really want to try that. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, it seems like as a hospice nurse, you are able to develop such meaningful, lasting relationships with your patients because you're coming to them where they are, often in their homes, and helping them maintain that independence and that purpose. And it's incredible work. And I've gotten to learn a little bit about it through your social media accounts. So do you mind telling us what inspired you to start sharing these stories on social media?
Yeah, it was an accident. So 3 years ago when COVID started, I think a lot of people forget about this, but we had no information at the start of COVID. All we knew was this is a deadly virus. We didn't know if it affected kids. We didn't know how it was transmitted even. They just told us to grab a scarf and come to work. And that was extremely scary. My husband's a doctor of physical therapy. And of course, my job was saying we need all hands on deck, of course. And then my husband is the only physical therapist for a low-income nonprofit clinic. So they were saying, we need you too. And we had to sit down and say, I don't know whose job is more important because, of course, all the schools closed down too. And we have kids. So my parents live basically on a farm, and they came and they got the kids. And they said, we'll just take them. And once we figure things out, we'll bring them back. So I had a 3-month-old at the time. So I made a video just for our friends and family, kind of update them on the situation. TikTok was the only editing app. So I just downloaded TikTok, and the only way to save it was to post it. And then it was automatically saved to your phone at the time. And so I posted it then to my private social media pages. Didn't think anything about it, and then woke up to like 2 million views. And it was just saying, like, this is hard for us, but we promise to care for people, and we're going to be there for people, and we're going to do it, and it's going to be okay. And that's how it started. And everyone in the comments started asking me what kind of nurse I was. And eventually I said, I'm a hospice nurse. I have some cool stories if y'all want to hear them. And people did. That's how it started.
Wow, that is an incredible start. And I did not know it was built that rapidly. That's incredible. And you really harnessed the moment and have used this opportunity to really educate people on what hospice care is and what a career in a health professions, even going through a pandemic, is like, and while raising 2 small children. So that's incredible. And now you have written a book called The In-Between, which tells the story of 12 patient encounters that have been deeply impactful for you personally, professionally, spiritually, and you manage to seamlessly tie in stories from your own life, which I feel like contributes to one of your main points, that humans, regardless of what stage or phase of life we are in, are dynamic and complex creatures, and we have needs beyond merely survival, which is something that health systems can often overlook. So when I was reading your book, I came across this Toni Morrison quote that if there is a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. And I remember reading that and thinking, I feel like this must apply to Hadley so deeply. So was that the case? And how did you decide that these specific stories needed to be told? And subsequently, what was the process like in deciding that you would be the one to tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always wanted to be a writer, but when I became a young single mom, that upended my plans. So I'd always wanted to write a book. The way I decided which patients to use was, like you said, if you haven't seen a book that you want written yet, you should write it. And I had never really seen anything from healthcare professionals that was really very raw and real. And I remember when I was very young and pregnant, I was very fearful of healthcare providers. I felt like they were always judging me, like they were just so far above me. And that's a very scary place to be when you're very vulnerable. And these people have your life in their hand. And then when I started working in healthcare, I remember thinking, these people all have their own problems too. And I don't think people really realize that because there's so much of a disconnect. And I really shouldn't have been scared of them at all. But of course, we know that a lot of people are. And a lot of people are so much to the point, well, they won't get medical care because they're so fearful of medical professionals. So I really wanted to show, like, you know what? We're not perfect. No, none of us are perfect. And the way that I chose which patients to choose was I had about 5 that I knew had to be in there. They always stuck out to me. So the book is my first 2 years in hospice. So I knew, like, my first patient death, and I have ones that I was extremely close to that I wanted. So I kind of put them out on the timeline. And then I thought about who had come between them, because they kind of were from my very first patient death in hospice to the end. And then I kind of had to figure out, well, how did I gain my confidence a little bit more? Which patient was, kind of that bridge between these two? Because like you said, I have my personal story in there, and you see me go from a very new nurse, very out of my element, to very confident in my role.
Right. Yeah, we do get to see, like, your career arc throughout the book, and it's really awesome to follow. And each story is so unique, but you can easily tell how it has contributed to your career growth and, like, your personal growth. That's really awesome. Some of these stories, I don't know how to describe other than, like, simply unbelievable. And I don't want to give any spoilers out, but you detail both some heart-wrenching and really heartwarming encounters with people near the end of their lives. And the things that they say and the things that they see are truly incredible. And in some instances prove to be life-saving. And your profession is one that comes with a lot of emotional labor. And from my observations, and you touch on this in your book as well, it appears that many nurses and other healthcare professionals try to distance themselves from this emotion. And you seem to do the opposite. You really lean into the emotion, good or bad, and you see your patients as whole people. Can you explain the intentionality behind this? Why do you believe this is the best way to care for your patients, and how has practicing medicine in this way impacted you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a journey. I wasn't always very good at it. Sometimes it would really overwhelm me, which is where I think that a lot of people just develop like that dark humor or just that wall that they put up. Because I think a lot of us come out of school and we are very sympathetic to situations and we take on everything that we can as if it was happening to us or to a close family member. And you burn out very quickly. And then you kind of put up that wall, I see. So I really, through therapy, had to start understanding empathy versus sympathy. And now I practice empathy where I always, feel for that person, but don't take it on as my own feelings. And I do grieve because I do get very close to my patients, but I also see them in situations where it's not a good quality of life. And, now that I have such spiritual beliefs that we do continue on past these physical bodies, that I do feel like they are free of these disease-filled bodies. So it's almost like a certain peace too.
Yeah, I can see how if a healthcare professional is solely focused on disease progression or kind of the biological reductionist mentality towards medicine, it can be hard to embrace those emotions if these physiological outcomes aren't going in the way that you would want. But when you really encompass what is important to your patient, what their goals are, it seems really awesome to embrace all of the emotion. And in your book, there are also a lot of good emotions that you get to experience as well. So I don't want to give too much away, but in the in-between, you share stories from your own life of unexpected death, grief, family tension, unplanned pregnancies, struggles with an eating disorder, just to name a few. It takes a lot of courage to share these stories privately, just with your friends and family, but even more so to a public audience. These challenges are things that so many people experience. And so I want to really thank you for giving a voice to these stories and creating that space where people can feel safe to share their own experiences. Did you have any reservations about sharing these intimate stories from your own life?
Yeah, I've had a lot of anxiety about it for sure, but social media has helped with that a lot because over the years I have shared things just kind of here and there, and I've never really gotten a negative response. It kind of finds the people who need it, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know if people are going to really like this. There was one I put out recently where I said if you don't talk to your family member and they die and you're not sad about that, you're not a bad person. It's okay. And don't feel pressured to go see them if you don't want to. And I was very nervous when I hit post because that's a hot topic for people. And I was shocked at the amount of people who said, you have no idea how much I needed to hear this. You just gave me peace. Because it's not something that's accepted in our culture. It's you should just forgive and forget. And they're your parents or they're your grandparents. Just forgive them. And I got very little pushback and it reached millions of people. And there's some videos that I put out that I think this is going to reach some people and it's going to impact them well. And that's okay. Even if it's only 5,000, 10,000 people and they love it, that's fine with me. And I thought that was going to be one of those videos. I had no idea that millions of people were going to relate to it. I was shocked.
Yeah.
So that has helped me with the book whenever I'm I think that there's more people out there that struggle with these issues than a lot of people say out loud.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so incredible that you are so willing to share these stories. And it's so awesome that you've been getting largely positive feedback. I feel like that is very much often not the case on social media. So I love that people are generally being kind to you and supporting your message. So that is awesome. I guess what's been the difference in releasing these stories in book form as opposed to social media? Is it like a different perception as you're releasing these stories? How does it feel?
Yeah, I think that the book allows it to really put it all together and give a lot more detail than I can in a maximum of a 60-second video. And even people who follow me, well, that you're always going to miss videos. So no matter, even if I put every single story out in chronological order with my own personal story, no one sees every single video. So whenever you have the book and you read it, I think that you're really, really able to understand not only how these patients impacted my life, but how people can have them impact theirs as well. And I think it's more than what a short form video could do.
Yeah, absolutely. The short form videos are great for getting like quick storytelling across and getting messages quickly, but the book is so awesome at really tying together all of these stories and creating an experience for the reader where they can feel moved by it. And they get that from your TikToks and social media as well. But the book is so great at encompassing all of this into like one written source that people can go back to. That's incredible. So a little bit about Carrie-Yaya. All of the caregivers on our platform are college students in some pre-health capacity. And so they're planning to become nurses, MDs, PAs, etc. And they're always looking for advice as they enter the healthcare professions. So a philosophy that you seem to carry with you throughout every patient encounter is meet them where they are. So can you explain a little bit, what does this mean to you and why do you think it's important to interact with patients this way?
Yeah, I think meet them where they are is such a good one, and it can be used in so many different ways. And I think sometimes, and I'll see this, and I used to do it too, we want someone to just do what we've been taught. So for example, even just in the hospital, we see patients who are non-compliant with their medicines, and we're like, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. And we don't really think about people who are, say, homeless. Like, yes, we can give them medications while they're there and they're going to take them, but we have to be realistic. Like, are they really going to go take that insulin every day whenever they are, out in the world? And is there different alternatives that are better? Do we need to look at what's actually realistic, even if it's not ideal? Because sometimes people will just fail overall if we don't have realistic expectations. And as we know, that can have very severe effects. And sometimes it would be better for them to do just a little bit instead of nothing at all. And I use that with my patients too. A lot of times people will come onto hospice very hesitant and they're like, I don't know, they said I don't really have any other options, so here I am. And I don't really want to be on hospice. And so I always say to them, it's not jail. And it's not a death sentence. And why don't you just come on? And if you want to come off hospice, go to the hospital, it's instantaneous. And you can come back on. If you want to come back on, you can go off. It's, you can do it as you want. And people like that, instead of me just being like, no, hospice is amazing, you're going to love it, you stay on hospice. And I just say, you know what, if you don't like it, come off of it. And I think I've only had one time someone's come off of it. Most people are like, okay, they try it. I start coming in their home. They start getting to know me. They're comfortable. They're pain-free. And they end up having wonderful passings and their families are so happy. But it's because I met them where they are. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's take it day by day.
Wow. I love that philosophy, and it makes me super optimistic for the direction healthcare was hopefully headed in. And I hope that all of the students on our platform who are entering healthcare professions can take this advice to heart and really meet patients where they are. And you touched on this briefly. People can sometimes have negative connotations associated with hospice care, or even just the word hospice. So are there any misconceptions that you would like to dispel here about hospice care?
Yeah, especially with people who are like pre-health. A lot of people don't understand that hospice is not like, okay, this person is going to die within the next 12 hours. We can't do anything else. Let's call hospice. Oh, I will, of course, I have to read H&P, history and physicals. And so I will see with a lot of my patients where they could have come onto hospice months beforehand. Hospice is for people who have 6 months or less. And I see them going to the hospital many times where the history and physical says that they give them some IV fluids and they send them home because they have to do something. And I kept thinking, like, we could have taken them on then if someone would have had this conversation with them. And you don't have to wait until the very end. And I just think that we're not told that. We're not taught that. People just don't know. It's not like people want to not have it, but people just don't know that you can refer to hospice earlier.
Right. Yeah. Patients and families can benefit from hospice far before the last possible opportunity. There are so many services, and it's just a different philosophy of care that can be super beneficial. So kind of circling back to your career as a whole, do you have any advice or anything you wish you knew before you entered the field of nursing?
I think the biggest thing I wish I would have known is that you don't have to figure out what you want to do in school. I remember, especially when I was in nursing school, it's like everyone knew what they wanted to do. They were like, okay, I want to be a pediatric nurse, so I just need to get through psych and pass it. But like pediatrics is my thing. And many people, they're still pediatric nurses, they did know. But I felt like throughout school, you had to kind of say what you were going to do right away. And it's not necessary. You can go through the entire, nursing school not knowing, and you can kind of try out different careers once you are a nurse. It's totally okay. And, interestingly enough, I had nurses that I went to school with who were like, I'm ICU. ICU is my thing all the way. They did ICU for a couple of years, and then they were like, no, this is not for me, and they ended up just coming out of nursing altogether. And I feel like it was kind of like an identity crisis kind of thing. And I felt that way too. Like, why am I not like finding my place at the beginning? So I think it's important to know, like, you do not have to have it all figured out by any means when you graduate.
That is very reassuring. I'm very much in that place in my life right now where it seems like everyone is figuring out what they're doing and figuring out all of these major life decisions. And so it is very helpful to hear that you don't have to have it all figured out right now. You can change what you want to do. And as long as you keep finding things that fulfill you and you feel you're making a meaningful impact, that's really awesome. To wrap us out, just kind of a more fun question. Do you have a specific way that you envision people reading this book? Like, just for instance, I read it all in one take unintentionally. I just couldn't put it down, and I was avoiding studying for a microbiology exam, but very happy that I chose the book instead. So I just read it all in one take at Chapel Public Library, and I was going through an emotional roller coaster. The other patrons of the library were probably a little concerned for me, but I really enjoyed it that way. Do you have a specific way you're envisioning people reading this?
Yeah, so whenever I was first starting to write the book, I had someone, a widow, reach out to me who said that she had sat at the bedside of her husband while he was actually in the hospital dying. And she just remembered people rushing in and out, not telling her anything. Obviously they're trying to save his life, not like they're ignoring her. And she just was like, what is going on? And she just kind of, even though there was so much activity around her, she felt very alone and scared. And she said that she sat by his bedside and watched all of my videos. And she was like, you were with me whenever he died. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I remember thinking, it's kind of funny, that I was like, yeah, I can definitely see where she's scrolling and you can like see videos that could help in that moment. But then you're also going to see like, oh, this is my makeup routine. So I remember thinking like, I want people to have this book in moments like that, where there's like the quieter moments where you need things to fill, you need reassurance. And that person has stayed in my mind so much as I've written this book. And I've always thought about her, and I've imagined that would be such a good instance for that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. It is incredible that not only through just the patients that you actually take care of, but all of these other people you are able to provide such peace and support to. And thank you for that. Hadley, thank you so much for speaking with us on today's podcast. And The In-Between is coming out on June 13th. I'd highly recommend. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Future of Caregiving, brought to you by Care Yaya. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration into the world of caregiving and that you've learned something new and valuable. If you want to stay up to date on all things caregiving, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And don't forget to check out careyaya.org, where we're dedicated to improving the future of caregiving through technology and compassion. From all of us here at Care Yaya, thank you for tuning in.